It's this part, the eagle that saves Gandalf whenever he's stranded on Orthanc, that tall black stone tower, a place that had become Saruman's base of operations. And of course, Gandalf had been trapped atop that tower by Saruman. By just watching the movie, we don't really understand that this eagle has a name, and also whose role is more significant than what we had previously may have realized. This eagle's name is Gwaihir, and that name is actually Sindarin for Windlord, or Lord of the Wind. Sindarin, if you're not familiar, is one of the Elvish languages spoken of in Tolkien's works. There are many different Elvish languages within Tolkien's works, however Sindarin is the one that's most commonly used in the land of Middle-earth. And Gwaihir's name is Sindarin. Gwaihir also has a brother, Londreval, and Londreval is also within the Lord of the Rings films. Londreval's name in Sindarin means Broadwing, and both Gwaihir and Londreval are descended from an eagle named Thorondor. And Thorondor was an eagle that actually served the Valar Manwë in the First Age and assisted in the fight against Morgoth, that first Dark Lord. And Thorondor's name means Lord of the Eagles or King of the Eagles. And looking back at who Thorondor served, that Valar Manwë, if you're not familiar and know what that means, I know that I've discussed this in other videos and perhaps it gets cumbersome, but the god of the Tolkien universe is Eru Ilúvatar. And Eru Ilúvatar, before he created the world which Middle-earth sits in, that world being Arda, he created these powerful, angelic, divine spiritual beings called the Ainur. And the Ainur were divided into two groups, the Valar and the Maiar. The Valar were more powerful, and the Maiar served the Valar. Manwë was one of these Valar, one of the more powerful Ainur. Manwë's brother Melkor, also a Valar, turned evil and became Morgoth, the first Dark Lord. And Manwë is associated with air, wind, clouds, and birds, specifically eagles. And just an interesting thought, when Tolkien was first developing the idea of the origin of the eagles, in the first drafts, he was initially going to have the eagles actually be Maiar, that lesser divine angelic being, whereas the Valar are more powerful, the Maiar are less powerful. Initially in those first drafts, the eagles were going to be Maiar. However, later on, he changed that, and so that wasn't the case. But either way, eagles are associated and closely linked with Manwë. And so Thorondor served Manwë. Another being that served Manwë and Maiar was Aloran. And Aloran was later sent by the Valar to Middle-earth in the form of a wizard to help fight against the dark forces of Sauron. And Aloran's name, when he became a wizard, he was known as Gandalf. This potentially provides a reason why there is a closeness of eagles and Gandalf. Gandalf being known as Aloran prior to him becoming a wizard and serving Manwë, who has that close association with eagles. Going back to Gwaihir, another thing that you may not realize or know if you've only watched the movies and not read the books, Gwaihir is actually an intelligent, independent being who speaks the common tongue, so he's able to communicate with words to those around him. And also just considering the nature of Gwaihir's relationship with those in Middle-earth, he's not a servant. He's an independent ally, an intellectual being who is able to freely communicate with those in Middle-earth. And then thinking about the important things that Gwaihir did or contributed to, number one, again, he saved Gandalf there from the Tower of Orthanc. That part is significantly different in the books than in the movie, and that'll be a video for another time. Then later, he's actually sent by Galadriel in order to find Gandalf after he has fought the Balrog, Durin's Bane, at which time he actually died in the fight against that Balrog, and then was sent back by the one being Eru Ilúvatar, the god of the Tolkien universe. After he was sent back and stranded on the top of the mountain, the peak of that mountain actually being known as Ziraxigil, where Gandalf was found once he was sent back by Eru Ilúvatar. Gwaihir actually picked him up from this location and took him to Lothlorien. So that's 2 times providing major assistance to Gandalf. And then Gwaihir and his brother actually participate and fight with the peoples of Middle-earth against the armies of Sauron. They're at the Battle of Morannon, the battle at the Black Gate. And then lastly, he and his brother assist in saving Frodo and Sam after the ring was destroyed from Mount Doom. So his part and also his brother's part was very integral to major events within Middle-earth. And so in thinking about ways that I might be able to apply the topic within my own life that was discussed today, or perhaps you might be able to apply it in yours too, when I think about Gwaihir, I think about when I was a teenager and I watched the movies for the first time. I hadn't quite fully immersed myself into the books. I own them, but I didn't quite read them or understand them. However, a short time afterwards, I did go through and read them, and then I found out that Gwaihir could actually talk, speak, and communicate. He was an intellectual being who was a valued ally, who contributed much to the cause. The reason why I think that's important is so often in my life, there's times where I'll assume something about someone else. And oftentimes that assumption is not very good or flattering to that individual. This is something that I honestly want to change. Sometimes I'll meet someone and I'll base my whole idea or concept about them in just a limited exchange of words that occurred. And then I'll think something negative about them, or maybe not even negative, but I won't even think that much of that individual. Or perhaps I'll base my understanding about an individual because of their past or how I once knew them. However, I haven't really had much time to catch up with them, so I think of that person as their past selves, not who they have changed into. And oftentimes, this assumption about these individuals, I've been wrong. And I've come to realize that I should have valued my interaction and also my association with those individuals more than what I really did. And there was much more to these individuals than face value. And that's initially how I viewed Gwaihir. I didn't even know that he had a name. I just thought he was one of the eagles. And so now when I think about what I didn't know about Gwaihir, as opposed to what I know now, I also feel like I can apply that to my other interactions in everyday life. And not taking people at face value and just assuming I know who they are, because in reality, there probably is much more there than what I have given them credit for. And also, I've had that happen to me, and it does not feel good, and that's something I want to change and not do to other people. And lastly, just two other thoughts when it comes to friendship. I know sometimes we may not have friends. Honestly, I've been there where I haven't really felt like I've had any friends. However, when we do have friends, especially friends that are caring, that think about us, that try to find out what's going on with us and then can pick up or realize when maybe something is off, that's really valuable and important. Specifically, I think about whenever Gandalf had fought Durin's Bane and ended up dying there on top of the mountain and being sent back. Gwaihir comes to his aid at this point in time because Galadriel sent him. So the way that I like to potentially look at that is she was thinking about him. Now, I'm sure there's much more to that story or whatnot, but ultimately, at least that's what I like to think, is that something caused her to think about her friend and to send help. And not only that, Gwaihir, who had already been there to help Gandalf previously, was willing to do it, also showing his friendship. Whenever we have people like that in our lives, we truly need to value them. Perhaps you don't have that now, but hopefully you will in the future. But when we have people like that by our sides, that's important, and we should do whatever we can to keep those kind of people in our lives. And not only that, friends that are willing to go through things with you. That is also very valuable. Again, maybe you don't have that yet, but hopefully you will have that in the future. But when you have friends that are willing to go through things with you, it can make going through the worst of times much more bearable. And so I think of those 4 incidents with Gwaihir and everything that he did in helping Gandalf after he had just been betrayed by whom I would think Gandalf always viewed as a good friend. At least that's what I have within my mind, in Saruman. And just going through something that was incredibly difficult, literally dying, but being sent back, and then Gwaihir is there to come get him and help him through that situation and bring him to Lothlorien. Then Gwaihir and his brother, they were willing to fight with the people of Middle-earth and risk their lives and to go through that with them. And again, how I would interpret that is they're there to help their friends. And then lastly, they fly into Mount Doom and help and assist in saving Sam and Frodo. Again, the way that I like to think about that is them helping to save their friends. And so when we have people that are willing to suffer with us and go through things with us, it's something to be cherished and valued. And so those are just some thoughts about Gwaihir. And I honestly think that perhaps he might need more credit than what we give him. Or maybe you already give him that credit and maybe I need to give it more. But I think he's someone that should be spoken of more whenever we talk about the greatness of Tolkien's work. And so it's this part, Gwaihir, who has truly become one of my favorite characters.